We each have a mind, a heart, and a soul. Elements of our being that cannot be fully explained in a minute, an hour, a day, or even a year. Our circumstances differ based on where we live and the abilities we possess. Yet, despite these differences, there is something fundamental that unites us: our shared humanity and the world we all inhabit. Together, this makes us one people, one creation, human beings, followers of various faiths, those who believe in the teachings of Christianity through the Bible, Islam through the Quran, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, and many other spiritual traditions have long pursued the path of inner purification. Across these teachings, there is a consistent call to refine the heart and soul, drawing closer to the divine. Spiritual teachers have consistently emphasized the need to purify the heart, as it is believed to be the key to entering the kingdom of God. They speak of the end times, urging people to follow divine guidance. Their message often includes the promise of eternal reward for the righteous and dire consequences for those who reject God's word and choose a path of wrongdoing. According to many religious teachings, on the day of judgment, the final day, those who have lived righteously will be dressed in white and welcome to sit with the Most High, enjoying eternal happiness in paradise. Meanwhile, those who chose evil and aligned themselves with Satan will be cast into a fiery furnace, condemned to eternal torment. There is much to explore when it comes to religion. Many still question its origins. Some believe they have insight, while others remain confused and without clear direction. Despite the many unanswered questions, several prominent social scientists argue that many of the challenges our world faces today are closely linked to religion and its influence on human society. In today's world, religions continue to multiply. Some claim to speak the truth, while others accuse them of deception and nonsense. Many seekers struggle to find the true religion. Some convert frequently, and others abandon religion altogether, refusing to engage in practices like prayer or spiritual reflection. With all these debates and divisions, the pressing questions remain. Where is this all heading? Will the long-awaited day truly arrive? Is there really an afterlife waiting for us beyond this life? To begin understanding, let's explore the origin of the word religion. To do this, we'll delve into the rich history of spiritual traditions through the works of various scholars and writers who have studied and documented the development of religious thought. The world is filled with mysteries and questions that often leave us confused. Yet one thing sets human beings apart from all other creatures: the deep desire to seek understanding and meaning. Welcome to our channel, where we explore the past, analyze events, and share stories that shed light on life, using historical documents left behind by our ancestors. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next episodes of The Messenger and the Survivor. You know, people have always had big questions about life, like, why are we here? What happens when we die? Is there something or someone out there watching over us? And for as long as we've been asking those questions, religion has been one of the main ways people have tried to answer them. Over the years, some of the greatest thinkers in history have shared their own ideas about what religion really is, where it comes from, what it's for, and how it affects our lives. Let's start with Karl Marx. He was a German philosopher in the 1800s, known for talking a lot about society, class, and power. One of his most famous quotes is, "Religion is the opium of the people." He said this in 1844. What did he mean? Well, Marx believed that religion was kind of like a drug. It helped people feel better when their lives were hard, but it didn't really solve their problems. He thought religion gave people hope, but in a way that made them accept suffering instead of fighting for real change. In his view, religion was created by society, especially by those in power, to keep people under control. Now let's jump back in time to the 1600s and meet Blaise Pascal, a French philosopher and mathematician. Pascal had a different take. He came up with something called Pascal's wager, which he wrote about in a book called Pensée. Published after his death in 1670, he basically said, "Look, even if we can't prove God exists, it still makes more sense to believe than not. Why? Because if you're right, you get eternal happiness. If you're wrong, you haven't really lost anything." Pascal saw religion as a smart, hopeful choice, something that gives life meaning and helps people face the unknown. Now fast forward to the 20th century and meet Mircea Eliade, a Romanian historian and writer. In his 1957 book, The Sacred and the Profane, Eliade dove deep into the human connection with the sacred. He said religion wasn't just about gods or rituals. It was a way humans made sense of the world. According to him, religion gave structure, identity, and a link to something eternal. He studied ancient cultures and saw that throughout history, humans have always separated sacred time and space from ordinary life. So in Eliade's view, the origin of religion is deeply human. It's how we connect to mystery, meaning, and the big picture. Go back even further to ancient Greece, and you get Euripides, a playwright who lived around 400 BCE. In his famous play The Bacchae, he tells a story about what happens when people go too far, either by rejecting the gods completely or by following them blindly. Through his characters, Euripides showed that religion can be both beautiful and dangerous. He wasn't against belief, but he warned about the chaos that can come when it's misused. He wanted people to think more deeply about what they believe and why. Then there's Aristotle, one of the most famous philosophers in history. He lived around 350 BCE and had a very logical approach to everything, including religion. In his book Metaphysics, he said, "All men by nature desire to know." For him, religion wasn't just about gods or temples. It was about our natural curiosity. He believed there must be something, a first cause, that set everything in motion. But for Aristotle, this divine being didn't get involved in our lives. It just existed as the ultimate explanation for the universe. Religion, to him, was about understanding the world, not necessarily worshiping a god. And finally, we have Socrates, the teacher of Plato, who lived around 400 BCE. He was known for asking tough questions and challenging the way people thought, including what they believed about the gods. In Plato's Apology, which talks about Socrates' trial, Socrates says, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He believed that religion should help us become better people, not just follow rules blindly. He had a strong sense of inner guidance, something he called his daimonion, that helped him know right from wrong. Sadly, his ideas got him into trouble, and he was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. But he stayed true to what he believed until the very end. Religion's always been a super interesting topic for me, and I know a lot of other people are curious about it too. It's such a big, complex thing that sometimes it's hard to even wrap your head around what it really means. But that's what makes it worth talking about, right? So let's take a step back and dive into where it all started. It's history. So let's talk about where religion actually came from. Like, how did it all start? To figure that out, we've got to rewind way back, like ancient world level. Before organized religions like Christianity, Islam, or even Judaism came into the picture, early humans were already trying to make sense of the world around them. Think about it. You're living thousands of years ago with no science, no internet, no Google. You hear thunder crashing, see lightning strike a tree, or watch the sun disappear during an eclipse. Kinda terrifying, right? These early humans started creating stories, what we now call myths, to explain the natural forces they couldn't control. They believed in spirits in the wind, gods in the sky, and powers in the rivers, mountains, and trees. This is what we call animism, and it's one of the earliest known belief systems. People thought everything, animals, rocks, even the weather, had a spirit. As human society developed, especially with farming in cities, their spiritual ideas grew too. They started organizing these beliefs into systems with gods, rituals, and rules. That's when we start to see the beginnings of what we now call religion. Take ancient Egypt, for example. Around 3000 BCE, they had a full-on religious system with gods like Ra, the sun god, Isis, and Osiris, along with temples and priests. Their religion wasn't just about praying, it shaped their politics, their laws, even how they built their pyramids. The pharaoh wasn't just a ruler, he was seen as a god himself. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, people believed in a whole group of gods tied to nature and human activity. A god of storms, a goddess of love, a god of war, and so on. They built ziggurats, those big step temples, and believed that keeping the gods happy meant keeping society safe. Then you've got ancient India, where early religious ideas evolved into Hinduism. Texts like the Vedas, written down around 1500 BCE but passed down orally much earlier, talk about powerful forces, cosmic order, and the search for spiritual knowledge. Over time, ideas like karma, reincarnation, and dharma, duty, became central. In China, around the same time, religious thought started growing out of ancestor worship and a belief in balance and harmony with nature. That gave rise to Taoism and Confucianism, which, while not always called religions in the Western sense, offered spiritual and moral guidance deeply tied to everyday life. And don't forget the Greeks and Romans. They basically had a god or goddess for everything: love, war, the sea, the harvest. But Greek thinkers like Plato and Aristotle eventually started asking deeper questions about the universe, moving from myth to philosophy. So, in short, the origin of religion wasn't one big event. It was this slow evolution of humans trying to explain the unexplainable, connect with something bigger than themselves, and bring order to a pretty wild world. Prehistoric animism and the earliest beliefs. You know, when we look back at how religion first started in the ancient world, it really came from this basic human need to make sense of everything. Like why the seasons change, what happens when we die, or why natural disasters hit. People back then didn't have science or tech to explain things, so they turned to spiritual ideas. One of the earliest forms of belief was something called animism. Basically, people believed that nature, rivers, mountains, trees, animals, was alive with spirits. It wasn't an organized religion or anything, just this deep feeling that the world was full of energy and unseen forces that could affect your life. We've actually found archaeological proof of these early beliefs, like in Shanidar Cave in Iraq, where Neanderthals buried their dead with things like flowers and tools. That's over 100,000 years ago, way before written language. And then there's Chauvet Cave in France, full of stunning animal paintings from about 30,000 years ago. These weren't just about hunting. They show a kind of reverence, almost like early humans saw animals as sacred. Anthropologist Edward B. Tyler, way back in 1871, called animism the first real step toward religion. He believed it all started with dreams, when people saw themselves doing things outside their bodies, and with death, which they interpreted as the soul leaving. From there, it made sense to believe in spirits and other non-physical beings. According to Tyler, that kind of thinking was universal across early human cultures. As humans started to settle down, around 10,000 BCE, with the rise of farming and villages, these spiritual beliefs began to shift. Instead of spirits in every tree or stream, people started to imagine gods connected to farming, rain, fertility, and the success of the community. Then, much later, along came Christianity in the 1st century CE. It took those early spiritual ideas and turned them into a more structured belief system centered around one God. Instead of seeing the divine everywhere in nature like in animism, Christianity focused on a single creator who made everything, like in Genesis 1:1. But it still held on to the idea of life after death. Only now it was framed around salvation and resurrection, especially with Jesus rising from the dead, as explained in 1 Corinthians 15. And here's something interesting. Even though Christianity is all about one God, in many traditions people still pray to saints for help with specific things, like Saint Anthony if you've lost something, or Saint Christopher for safe travels. In a way, that's kind of similar to older animistic practices, where people look to certain spirits for help. It's like echoes of those ancient beliefs just stuck around, reshaped to fit into a newer system. Mesopotamian polytheism and the birth of urban religion. All right, let's jump into ancient Mesopotamia, which is often called the cradle of civilization. We're talking around 3500 BCE, when people started building the world's first real cities, places like Uruk, Ur, and Babylon. As these cities grew, so did the complexity of their religions. This is where polytheism, belief in many gods, really began to take shape as a central part of life. The Sumerians, one of the earliest known civilizations, saw the universe as being run by a team of gods, each in charge of different parts of nature or human life. There was Anu, the god of the sky, Enlil for wind and storms, and Inanna, who ruled over love and war. These gods weren't just there for show. They were seen as powerful, emotional beings who could help you out, or totally mess things up if you didn't keep them happy. That's why rituals and offerings were a huge deal, to ask for blessings, protection, good harvests, or military victories. And you couldn't miss the ziggurats, those huge layered temple towers that stood in the middle of the cities. They weren't just for worship, they were like spiritual skyscrapers that also functioned as community centers, economic headquarters, and places where priests played a huge role. These priests acted almost like divine translators, interpreting omens from the stars or delivering messages from the gods. Now, if you really want to get a feel for how these people saw the world, look at their epic stories. The Enuma Elish, written around 1800 BCE, tells the story of how the god Marduk defeated chaos and created the world. It's like a divine superhero origin story. Then there's the Epic of Gilgamesh, which includes a flood story that sounds a lot like the one in the book of Genesis. This flood wasn't just about water. It was about gods trying to reset the world. A historian named Thorkild Jacobsen, in his book The Treasures of Darkness, published in 1976, talked about how this whole religious system reflected what life was actually like in Mesopotamia. Harsh, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying. Think about it. Floods, droughts, scorching heat. The gods in their stories were just as unpredictable, capable of creating life one day and destroying it the next. Over time, the gods evolved too. At first, they were all about natural forces, but as cities got more powerful, the gods became kind of like city mascots. Marduk, for example, became the main god of Babylon. That change mirrored how politics worked. More centralized power, more centralized gods. These religious ideas didn't just stay in Mesopotamia either. They spread through trade and conquest, influencing cultures all around. Now, fast forward a few centuries. You might think Christianity is totally different from all this, but actually, it was indirectly influenced by Mesopotamian thought through Judaism. The Genesis flood story? Yeah, it shares some seriously close DNA with Gilgamesh's flood tale. But in Genesis, the focus shifts. Instead of many gods fighting it out, there's one God acting with purpose and justice. Christianity takes that even further. Where Mesopotamian religion had many gods, Christianity centers everything around one God and his divine plan. In places like Ephesians 1:11, it talks about how everything unfolds according to God's will, very much echoing that ancient sense of cosmic order, but streamlined into a single, divine narrative. Even the rituals shifted but kept some core ideas. Sacrifices, which were huge in Mesopotamian religion, influenced Jewish temple worship, and that later shaped Christian practices like the Eucharist. Instead of offering animals to gods, early Christians shared bread and wine to remember Jesus' sacrifice, especially as described in Luke 22:19 through 20. So yeah, even though Christianity made a major move by ditching polytheism, you can still hear the echoes of Mesopotamia in how it structures its beliefs and rituals. It's like religion didn't just leap forward, it evolved, carrying pieces of the past into something new. All right, everyone, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And hey, tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I've got plenty more coming your way. Feel free to share this video with your friends and drop a comment below. I love hearing what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and stay awesome. The Messenger.